Hello, hello, hello. Welcome, welcome, welcome. When the stove's hot, you might as well cook. So let's keep cooking. I got another hour, so before the next dog walk. So let's keep it going. Um, hmm. Well, we already kind of have a little process going here. Let's keep on doing the process. Process. Okay, let's just check the audio is working. Yeah, good. All right. So before we get started on this on the next, so there's something that I want to share just to frame the discussion, but the into the into the files. So so in the last video, basically we were talking about this thing which we call Project Arrowhead, and then I broke Project Arrowhead down into uh, something smaller and more manageable called Qubit Connect. So, and then with Cuba Connect, it's a combination of education and like to do list and how to make a to do list and how to make priorities in your to do list. So the educational portion of the show. In the last video, we created this. So it's based on the Buckholz Drive model. Attention, activity, the Roman farmer, method, lichen, and storytelling script. Imagine we're traveling 2,000 years ago to the Roman era. We met a farmer working with primitive wooden tools. He's exhausted and frustrated. He visits his friends, the carpenter and the blacksmith, and begs for them to match for a magical tool that will make his farming easier. This, however, the key point to emphasize: the farmer thinks tools create the outcome. His friends are about to teach him that effort is the actual engine. Wonderful. All right. And then reflection questions. Think of a project or task you're currently struggling with. What magic tool are you wishing for right now that you could think could solve the problem? A new app, a faster computer, more money, something else? Oh, yeah. So eventually we're going to have to go through this. We're going to have to read it again and to see like is this really what we want it to say? Is everything in here? What's going on? What is going on here? Dung diddy dung dung dee 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 ding. And then we got to get rid of this yellow green. Yeah, so we got to edit it. But the point is, like, you can't just edit it at the beginning. You have to you got to get it all out there before you start editing. So now, step one was the drive Buckles drive model, which is here. Also, I got to change the color because this is red, then this is going to be orange, and then this is going to be green. No, this is red. This is yeah, that's fine. So this is red, orange, and then this is orange, yellow, and then this is yellow, green, and then down here, I don't even know. It's actually a different concept, which we're not really going to cover it right now. Good. So now we got to do the same process again, but for the next chapter. Wow, it's starting to get cold in my house because I got a door open and it's like it's going down to zero. And all right, let's do it. Okay, so what I wanted to say before we get started is that one of the key ideas in Tom Buckles' work is this concept of potential, developing potential, working with potential. And yeah, that's basically what you have in your life. You're born and you're just a big ball of potential. And your ability to develop your potential is completely reliant upon your ability to access resources and also know how to apply those resources, and then to be excited for something yourself, to be really motivated about something, and then also to excite the effort and activities of others, and then to guide interactions, to put people into teams and to connect people together in order to, and get them working together. So if you're able to take a whole bunch of people and get them working together and be excited to work together, and then you give them resources, then it's likely that they can develop potential. All right. So that's the idea. Now, although like I'm telling you about this, I'm not necessarily going to keep I'm not necessarily going to have that in the course, because this concept is actually quite a challenge for people to understand. Let's say that we started with something very simple like this. I ordered a chicken and an egg from Amazon. I'll let you know. This is the basis for a philosophical conversation. I know in my last video I started going into some religious philosophy and explaining that, we in my religion's philosophy of existence, it's all based on this fundamental concept of there was some kind of ooze, some primordial ooze, some eternal ooze called uh consciousness, not consciousness. I mean, it's a type of consciousness, I guess. It's called intelligence. And then they say that, well, God is made from this intelligence and we're all made from this intelligence. And then somehow, but it sounds exactly like the concept of like how scientists explain um like the beginning, the earliest form of life on Earth. It's basically the same concept, because you have somehow there's some life. I mean, the simplest form of life, it's like I guess the cell. I don't know. Is the cell is like the smallest form of life? So, and then trees are made from cells, and humans and animals, everything's made from cells. Now, are rocks made from cells? Is metal made from cells? That's the thing, is I don't think that rocks and metal are made from cells. Like when we look at the periodic table of elements, that those are not cells, but cells have those things. So then the question is like, well, how do you have a cell? Because to some extent, you I don't want to use the word consciousness, but life. So we use the word life. So obviously, like a cell has life, and then what is this life? Because it's not just electricity, but it's intelligence. It's like intelligent design. It's like, so I think that the basic form of intelligence has something to do with procreation, because if a cell doesn't procreate, it immediately dies. So this is like the key foundation of intelligence, is the ability to create copies of itself. And then even when you look at like what's the foundation of religion, you're actually looking at a system of making copies. I used to think about like, well, what's the difference between individualism and collectivism? And it's like, well, it doesn't really matter if you can't make copies. So you have to have some kind of collectivism. You have to have some collective intelligence, meaning there has to be some kind of imprint of like, how are you going to make your species continue? Because once your species stops continuing, then it's extinct. So all species that are continuing have this basic programming of the importance of procreation, all the way down until all the way to the point where you have one little cell. Okay, so okay, procreate, and then also you have to be able to maintain your existence at least for a period long enough to be able to procreate. So then that means, like, do you have the enough energy to survive long enough to procreate? So then to become a more complex life form, then you have to understand how you can feed yourself. Okay, so now we have two issues: procreation and feeding oneself. Like, is that intelligence? Is that the first? So that's the first intelligent life form on Earth, the first intelligent life form, or is that just the concept of life? Okay, and is there a difference between the concept of life and intelligent life form? And then I'm sure that there's like people who can go into depth about these concepts, and I don't mean to like display my ignorance, but I mean that's basically what I understand about the basics of life. I mean, which is like nothing. So then you got this issue of like, okay, well, where did your intelligence come from? Because you're saying that God's made from intelligence and all the humans are made from intelligence. Life is made from this stuff. I mean, what's the difference between the word intelligence and life? So you can just say it's like there's a type of matter that is it's just called life. Now, there's something interesting about religion. At least my religion has this really weird idea because one of the guys that started my religion, he's like talking about like what's an angel made from? Like what is matter? What is the matter that an angel is made out of? So it's a pretty interesting idea. He's like, well, it's kind of like matter. It's kind of like the matter that we see, but it's finer. So that was his only way to explain it. So the question is like, how is it that an angel could like disappear? Like, and how do angels appear and disappear? Because sometimes some of the like stories they like go up. There's like a pillar of light, and they go. It's like they get sucked up into the sky. But then, but that doesn't really make a lot of sense because, all right, if you suck an angel up through a tube, at some point he's gonna like get like. I mean, is he gonna speed up at some? You have to speed up because where is it going? Where is that angel going to? Like, is it going to a different place? It's going to a place that we can't see, and then where's the location of that place? Which brings us back to the concept of like Men in Black, because remember Men in Black at the end of the movie, they're just like size doesn't matter because a whole universe could exist inside of the size of a marble. That the idea of size is irrelevant, and then there's the idea of like okay, so where? And it was all these things are crazy, and and it's just impossible to know. So I think that science is just kind of useless to the extent when it's talking about the Big Bang because it's like, okay, what happened before the Big Bang? It's like you, I mean, okay, so you're just saying there was a Big Bang, meaning there was a start to this whole process. Because obviously there was a start to the process. Otherwise, then what do we have now? Which is what? Which is just acknowledging the fact of time. So the question is, when did time begin? Time began at some point. And then what was before time? I don't know. I think it's impossible to answer, obviously, before what was before time. And then it's the same problem with this intelligence concept. So, okay, so you can say that God was made from intelligence. Okay, so who made the intelligence? Where'd the intelligence come from? It's like, I don't know. All right, so it doesn't matter what we're talking about. Like, it doesn't matter if you believe in God or not. See, I think if you believe in aliens, it's exactly the same thing as believing in God. Because you're saying that there's some kind of life form from some other place in the universe which grew and developed until it was intelligent enough to make a spaceship and travel itself all the way over here and say hello. Now, did the aliens create us and maybe did God create us or are we just a process of some natural biology? It's impossible to know. So that's why we're not making a religion channel because it's like you just find a religion that you think is cool. It's just like culture. You have your culture, you have your history. At the end of the day, what yeah, I mean, I think each religion kind of has like some ideas of like what you need to do in order for your post-life experience to be a little more comfortable. And who am I to argue what you believe? So, like, as long as I mean, I would hope that you believe in this, like either having a meaningful current existence or or a meaningful post existence, and that some of that meaning will be found in creating worthwhile goals. Once you've developed some worthwhile goals, that you're trapped in this little loop, and that's really what I want to talk about is you being trapped in this little loop. And the little loop is like, okay, so like, what did we achieve last week? And then like, what do we need help with? And then what are we going to achieve this week? And like, what are some sources of help? So, you know, what I'm talking about is this idea of potential. And the idea of potential is really just like moving from A to B, what's possible and what you desire. Another word for that is vision. And so here it is. Here's the huddle, and here's run the play. So Tom says, well, the first thing you have to do is you have to have some kind of vision, which means you have to understand that you're here. Your purpose in life is to develop potential. You have to develop your personal potential, and then you have to provide tools and education so other people can develop their potential. And then it doesn't really matter after that. I mean, you can have your religion, and I don't really care. I mean, if you want, my religion's kind of cool. I like it. So if you want to learn about my religion, then that's fine. But if you have your own religion and you're not interested in my religion, that's fine too. But then, like, the thing is that you still have to have a vision about how you're going to provide products and services to make this world a better place because you have to sustain life. So it goes back to the fundamental idea of how are we going to sustain life long enough to procreate. It's weird, man. It's kind of weird that just like realizing that I didn't make any babies yet. So I'm just like I've been able to sustain my life to some extent up to this point. Will I be able to sustain my life long enough to procreate? Crazy. And then Tom says, well, potential, that means like you need to learn how to work with other people and to get everybody motivated and then give them resources. All right. Now, so my app does not guide interactions. In fact, but like my bigger app, so like Project Arrowhead, that definitely has an element about like guiding interactions. It has that click up, it has the option to so in Project Arrowhead, you have to develop a vision. You have to have an overall vision, and then you have to have vision for like specific objectives, and then you have to break those objectives down into your team, and your team is going to like have on the team has a variety of different things that they have to do. So yeah, there's but then as you as an individual, um, from my experience, there's a lot of things you can do without uh, necessarily having too much interaction with other people because I've done that for most of my life. It's like I've tried to limit my interactions. It's just the way I am. I'm not really high on the extroversion scale. So, like, I've had to try to deal with how I interact with the world with my personality. And then resources. So, you have your resources. Some people have more resources, some people have fewer resources. So I'm not really focusing on resources here, and I'm not really focusing on interactions. I mean, to some extent, interactions are also a form of resources. Here, see, you can see resources might include skills, data, entities, reputation, loyalties, funds, infrastructure, and time. So how many of those have to do with other people? Skills, not really. Data, entities, yeah, entities, it's about other people. Reputation is about other people. Loyalties is about other people to some extent. Funds could be about other people. Infrastructure could be about other people. Data could be about other people. Skills. So all these also have to some connection with people, other people, and what other people bring to the table, what you bring to the table. But that's all like, physical stuff. Like you can quantify all this stuff. You can quantify skills. You can test skills. You can figure out what is the meaning of the data. You can count entities. You can measure reputation. You can define loyalties. You can count funds. You can build. You can look. You can create infrastructure. You can like all of this stuff is quantifiable. But the issue here is this one here. This is what eludes people is the motivation. And so that's the next thing that I want to talk about is this concept of Fogg's motivational model. Is Fogg still alive? Fogg motivation. BJ Fogg. Brian Jeffrey Fogg is an American social scientist and author who researched associated chunk professor at Stanford University. He's the founder and director of the Stanford Behavioral Design Lab, formerly known as the Persuasive Technology Lab. Oh, the dude's still alive. Is this the same guy? Let's jump into his Wikipedia. Dude, look at this. He's Brigham Young. He's another Mormon. Check it out. Dude's a Mormon. Journal of Mormon Thought. You see that? I knew it. Probably not. Doesn't look like it. Yeah, here it is. This is Fogg's behavioral model. B equals MAP. Behavior happens when motivation, ability, and prompt come together at the same time. Okay, I have no understanding of Fogg's motivational model, but I don't think it's very useful. Behavior when motivation, ability, and prompt come together at the same moment. I mean, it's good for smart people, but like I'm just a regular person. So, I don't know if this is Fogg's motivational model or not. In fact, thought it was cool. So I prefer this version. I'm not really sure if it's actually like a real representation of his work. I should send him a message. Say, dude, check it out. I have no idea what this is. Okay, look. Okay, let's take a look at what does this say over here. Okay, so he says when the prompts fail here. Okay. The prompts fail here. The prompts succeed here. So you have the behavior when you see this is also kind of difficult to understand. I'm going to use my own understanding of the model. This one. This is the one I teach. All right. Now, why is this important? So I think that in the last, when we talked about Buchholz's drive model, drive comes later. When we look at the Buchholz drive model, the main point is just to simplify human endeavors into level of effort and level of success, which means that, okay, the main point is that you have to become more motivated and you also have to become more skilled. So it's really why is it the first thing I want to teach people? It's because it's the simplest. It's like, hey, listen, this is like you need more effort, dude. You need more effort, and then they start putting in the effort, and they go, "I'm putting in effort. I'm still not getting the result." Okay, well then you need more skill. You need more knowledge. You need better methods. You need more competency. Or if you got like a really smart person and they're like, "I know how to do everything." Okay, well then we need more effort. Like those are the two basic ingredients for life. So like let's do it. All right. And then how do we move that? How do we move from there to Fogg's motivational model? All right, so get ourselves back here. Would you like me to first unit the Fogg's motivational model by detailing the formula and how it specifically applies to the red zone task and different in this table? No, it's not what I want. No, I don't want you to explain the like traditional form of Fogg's motivational model. I think it's wonderful and lovely and nice and great. And also, I think that maybe I would like to explain it in a different way. So, the first thing that we want to talk about when we are explaining the Fogg's motivational model is that we're going to be making like we want to continue our story. So we have this guy, this farmer, that's living in Roman times, and he was able to hang out with his. He was hanging out with his friends. His one friend's a carpenter who builds furniture, and the other friend is a blacksmith. And they put together this tool that enables farmers to be able to cultivate the ground. And they discovered that it was like really useful because the farmer, he didn't have to put in so much effort. He was able to connect a animal to the device. So the device had the working element, which was the element that was actually moving the dirt in the ground. It had a transmission element, which was how the knife was connected to some kind of frame, and then the frame had wheels on it, and then the frame also had a brace, and the brace was connected to an animal. All right, so this was the transmission. This was how, and then the animal was the engine. And so, with this system, the animal, using the muscle of the animal and the transmission of the wheel into the knife, which is the working element, it was only necessary the farmer to use his brain and like a very small amount of steering devices in order to control. He was the control element and he wanted to control the whole system. And he was really the everyone in town was talking about him because in the past there was that one farmer who was really really productive and he worked for 14 hours a day, and he was like the most famous for having the largest field and doing the most work, and he was the most successful, and his wife was the most beautiful of all the wives in the village because she just, for some reason, this really beautiful woman, she was happy with the man who was working the hardest. And historically, there's been some connection between the productivity of the male and the physical beauty of the female. Maybe it's true, maybe it's not true. Let's just assume that there is some truth to that. But suddenly, this beautiful woman, she gets up one day from her hard life of eating all the kinds of food and having all the wonderful blessings and benefits of having riches beyond her wildest dreams with the richest, most productive man in town. And she sees this lazy dreamer in his field on the other side of town. And everybody's watching, and she can't believe it. He is only working 1 hour a day, and he can do more work than her husband does in 14 hours a day. He built some strange contraption that enables him to do all kinds of work. And suddenly, that this man who has developed this new tool decides that he thinks that even 1 hour of work is actually too much for him. He doesn't want to do any work at all. And so he asks the townfolk who wants to try using his plow. And all kinds of people line up. They're all like, yeah, I want to try the plow. Now, in this situation, we have an extremely high level of motivation. Everybody in town wants to try his new plow. And the plow is, I mean, it's a new tool and it's really difficult to use. So the first young man, he gets behind the plow and he starts trying to control the animal, and the animal decides to walk in the wrong direction, and he starts to and he falls into a pit, and then the animal has to we got to pull the animal out of the pit. And so obviously this young man's feeling frustrated. This is too difficult, and so he walks away. There's no action. It's just, and actually a whole bunch of young men, when they saw it happen, they just said, "Hey, look, although it looked really interesting at the beginning, but it's just way too difficult for me." But over time, there's a few guys who are patient and they work together and they start to put together some understanding of how to control the plow. All right, so this is the beginning of the concept called the facilitation trigger. The facilitation trigger, as you can see in this diagram, we have one axis. It's called motivation, and whenever we think about our activities, there's going to be some activities where we are extremely motivated to do the work, and there's going to be other activities which are extremely unmotivating or extremely boring to do this work. And we don't necessarily have the ability to choose. There's some ideas, some feelings, some work, some they just call to you and they seem to touch you and they seem to call your attention and they ask you to come and work with them. and then you just go out and you try it and you feel all kinds of motivation. Now, if you don't get the result that you were looking for, sometimes what happens is motivation starts to decrease. So, for example, like for me, like I've been trying to create some software for a very long time. And over this period of time, what I've noticed is that to some extent, I started feeling frustration. And this feeling of frustration is when I had a huge amount of motivation, but I found it very difficult to do. And then even when I was taking action, I didn't seem to be getting the result. I didn't get the dopamine hit. I got the dopamine hit from starting the activity, but I did not get the dopamine hit that I was supposed to get when I succeeded. So if you can consistently work to try to do tasks which are very difficult and but you are very motivated to do and you are not succeeding, then it's possible that over time you'll start to feel major frustration, and that frustration can have a large effect on your feeling of motivation. And over time, you may start to lose that motivation unless you're able to understand the concept of a facilitation trigger. So, before we move to what is a facilitation trigger, just list some of the goals that you have, some of the activities that you're engaged in, some of the tasks that you have. So, think of the things that you're doing or which you would like to do and you are really fascinated with and you'd really like to be able to succeed with. But sometimes it just feels too hard and the path seems too long and you're just not sure what to do and you're starting to feel frustrated. Start a new column for this next one. So reimagined. All right, let's go to the next one. All right. So the idea behind the facilitation trigger is that and the question about how does Qubit help you in the process of working taking action when you have something where you're highly motivated to do it, but maybe it just seems like it's a little bit frustrating because it seems too difficult. So the purpose of the qubit function of the application is that when you have something that you need to get done, then you need a facilitation trigger. And what is a facilitation trigger? This goes back to the idea of what is education. Education is breaking something down into bite-sized pieces. Bite-sized pieces meaning that you want to learn how to do something, and so you need to break it down into a small enough piece that you can understand. So, for example, let's say if you're going into a math class, and your very first math class, you have to learn how to count. And you have to learn that, like, what is the meaning of one? What is the meaning of two? What is the meaning of three? So if I put 5 apples on your desk, I say, how many apples is that? You have to have the ability to recognize that there are 5 apples. And then if I want to teach you some addition, then I can separate those apples, those 5 apples, into two different groups. And so I say, look, there's 3 apples over here, and there's 2 apples over here. And then the idea of addition, it means that we take two groups and we put them together. That's called addition. And then you can try it. You can try it with all kinds of things. You can try it with oranges. You can try it with bananas. You can try it with watermelon. You can try it with sheep. You can try it with trees. You can try it with mountains. You can try it with anything you want. When you split them into groups, if you have two different groups and you want to put them into one group, then we can use something called addition. And what happens if we want to split them into two different groups? Let's say you have a friend and your friend wants some of your apples. Then the question is, can you count how many apples that you're going to give your friend and how many apples you're going to keep for yourself? So these are some of the first lessons that you will receive when you are a child and you're learning how to do mathematics. Well, what about language? So, also, when you're a child, the first thing that you're going to learn is things like what are letters A, B, C, D, E, F, G, and then what are the sounds that they make. And then you're going to put some of those letters together into groups called phonetics. And then what are the sounds that these different groups make? And then you put those phonetics together, and then suddenly they make the roots of words. And then once you understand the meanings of the roots of the words, then you can add the suffix and the prefix and other aspects of words, which makes full words and permutations of words. And you can see how you can continue to build upon a single word. And then when you put words together into some phrases, then suddenly it carries on a new meaning. And then you can attach these phrases together in sentences, and you can attach sentences together into paragraphs, and then you can make things called arguments. Wow. How do I create an argument? Well, to create an argument, you have to start from the very beginning. And so the app Qubit Connect it's an opportunity for somebody to get away from some dopamine causing activities which don't actually have real outcomes, and to start focusing on some activities which can result in the production of resources and also the development of skills. So the when you click the button, the Qubit button, when you have a task and you want to break that task down into subtasks, you're going to click the Qubit button. It's going to use AI, and or you don't even have to click the Qubit button. You can even use your brain. Wow, it's amazing. So you can click the subtask, you can drag it over into the task box, or you can just click the task. You can add a task to the task list, and then you can decide what does it mean to break down that task into smaller steps. Once you break down the task into smaller steps, eventually you're going to get to the very first step, a step that you actually can take. There is some possibility that the next step that you're going to take is either going to be something you know how to do, or it's going to be something that you do not know how to do. So the idea of a facilitation trigger is based on taking the task and breaking it down into a small enough subtask that you are able to take action on. And that the nature of that action is either that you're going to learn how to take that next step, or that you know how to take that step and then you actually do take that step. And so action can be broken down into either learning or doing. The idea behind a facilitation trigger is to first break down the task into a sub-step that can turn into action, and then to decide whether that action is to acquire a skill, or that you have the skill already loaded and now you can apply the skill. And so loading a skill or learning is a type of action. And the second type of action is to apply the skill, which is to do, is to use the skill in order to take the action. But in either case, the facilitation trigger, it means that you take something which you are very motivated to do, but which is very difficult for you, and you break it down until the point when you can decide whether you are going to teach yourself how to do something, or whether you're going to apply that teaching into the action. So the next thing that we want to do is we want to identify some of the areas in your life where you feel highly motivated, and then you're going to write down some of the goals that you have or some of the outcomes that you'd like to achieve, and then you're going to break that down into a smaller and smaller subtasks until you get to the very first task. Now, if you want to expand on this activity, the other thing that you can do is you can actually create your own course. So the way that you create your own course is you can use artificial intelligence, or you can just talk to a teacher or a mentor, and you can take the goal and have it, you break it down into smaller and smaller steps. And once you've listed all of the steps in order to do that, to do that task, then you can decide which of the tasks that you have the skill for and which of the tasks you do not have the skill or the tool for. And then you can make a list of skills and a list of tools that you need to acquire in order to be able to fulfill the entire project or the entire endeavor. So what we want to do in the for the next activity is to create a chain of subtasks and then attach with them a chain of skills and tools. And then you're going to color some boxes. So there's going to be three rows. The top row is the subtasks, all the subtasks that you need to do. The next row is going to be all of the skills or tools that you're going to need in order to do those subtasks. And then finally, you're going to color green or red. So for all of the green boxes, those are the ones that you already know how to do. And then the red is the ones that you do not know how to do yet. And the purpose of this game is to make a list of all the red boxes, and so that you can physically see all of the skills and tools that you would need to develop in order to be able to accomplish the goal. Okay, what's next? Let's keep it going. We still got 15 minutes before that dog thing goes off. All right, let's move to the next stage. So let's jump back into the Fogg's motivation model, and this will be looking at the other factor. So in the vertical, we can see that there is motivation and some tasks and some endeavors and some things in life call out to us and they ask us to come and pay attention to them. And they're really interesting and they're very exciting. But sometimes, if we don't have the right amount of skill, then we are unable to get to take action because it just seems like it's too difficult. The it's too far, it's too big, it's too heavy. And okay, we finished talking about that. So now we're going to move to the spark trigger. So the spark trigger is it highlights this idea of ability. We already pointed at a task where the task is just it's too difficult. And the facilitation trigger, it's the process that helps a difficult behavior become a more simple behavior. Now, there's other things that happen in life that as you work on tasks and as you develop skills and as you follow your education in life, what you're going to find is that some things become easy to you. And then sometimes when things are easy, then they start to feel boring. And if you start to get more and more bored, meaning that you don't get any dopamine hit, your brain is not providing any dopamine for you because it doesn't feel like you deserve a reward because the task that you did is too simple. Then what happens is you begin to feel something called annoyance. Annoyance is a form of no action, just like frustration was a form of no action. And annoyance is when you know that the thing needs to get done or that it's your responsibility to do the thing, but it just feels so boring and it's just so easy, but there isn't any feeling of reward. And the question is, what do we do when there's something that you need to do, but you don't feel a reward to do it? These are real simple things like how about making your bed? Or how about brushing your teeth? Or how about exercise? Now, for some people, or how about saving money? How about investing money? How about paying attention in your relationship? So remember that the three key areas of life are your finances, your health, and your relationships. And sometimes it's these areas which are sometimes you can feel the most annoyance because after time, certain aspects of your relationship and certain aspects of your health and certain aspects of your finances begin to feel boring. And it's really simple to put 10% of your income into a bank account. And it's not very challenging to go to the bank and talk to somebody at the bank about taking that 10% in your savings account and to put it into some kind of mutual fund. And it's maybe not even that difficult to look at the variety of different methods that people use to invest and make some decisions about what you're going to do with that money. But sometimes when things are simple and getting paid every month is simple, then they just feel boring. And also because it's going to take a really, really, really long time for you to see any difference in your investing life. And also maybe you feel like maybe you need to lose some weight, and so you have to follow the good old advice to move more and eat less. So now you have to start paying attention to the calories going into your body, and you have to start paying attention to the amount of activity that you're engaged in. And maybe it doesn't feel that exciting because you're not going to see any result for several months. Or maybe it's your relationship. You take this person for granted and you see them every day, and you're not really sure what to do to overcome some of the emotional hurdles, or maybe you made some mistakes in the past and you're not really sure what to do to work through those and try to develop a relationship. And there's a lot of different little things that you could do and make a habit out of it to improve that relationship. And sometimes some of those things they seem pretty simple. For example, the two compliment rule. If you compliment your partner twice a day, then what happens is somehow that creates a positive energy where you're paying attention to them and you're looking at what really matters to them, and then they see that you are paying attention to them and you're trying to bring some positive energy in their life, and somehow that makes them feel like they want to bring some positive energy back into your life. But then at the same time, maybe it's going to take longer than one compliment. Maybe it's going to take more than 1 week. Maybe it's going to take longer than 1 month. So a lot of the time, some of these long-term behaviors, they're simple, but they're kind of boring because you don't really see the direct result right away. And so in this case, we need things called spark triggers. All right. So imagine that you're not giving your significant other two compliments a day. And Okay, then you start giving them 2 compliments a day, but then after a week, you don't really notice any difference, and after 2 weeks, you don't really notice any difference, and then you start to kinda get a little bit tired of giving them compliments because, you don't really see any benefit from it, you don't really think that they're changing, maybe they don't even appreciate it, maybe the problem is that you don't recognize it, but the point is that you start to feel annoyed. So now you're giving them compliments, and you're starting to feel annoyed that they're not reacting in the way that you're hoping that they would react. How are you gonna continue making these compliments if you're not gonna get if you don't get that immediate reaction, that specific result that you want? So in these cases, it's important to start to set up your own triggers. You have to set up your own little spark trigger, right? So maybe you have a container full of Hershey Kisses, and every time you give them a compliment, you go to that container and you take one of your Hershey Kisses. And so they don't know about your container of Hershey Kisses. Only you know about your container of Hershey Kisses. And so you're giving them a compliment sometimes because you really care about them and you want them to have a compliment and you want them to feel your positive energy. And sometimes you're just annoyed and you don't really feel like having any compliment. Maybe you had a fight that day and you don't really want to give them a compliment, but you want that Hershey kiss. And so you give them a compliment, you smile, you give them a compliment, and then you go to your room and you open up your container and you have your Hershey Kiss. See, that's a spark trigger. I exercise with my dog every single day, and I don't know what's the spark trigger. I don't know. Do I? So I don't feel that it's necessarily annoyance. So that's why I'm able to do it. In fact, my dog is kind of annoying. See, every night, my dog, when I have an alarm. So I have an alarm that goes off at 10:30 at night, and the dog is waiting for that alarm, and I'm waiting for that alarm. The alarm goes off, and it's not every day that I really want to go out and jump on the bicycle and do 4K. But I know that the dog loves it. He just loves running. It makes it the happiest thing in the world when he is running his 4 kilometers. I don't know how he does it because he can do it every day without. I bet he could do 8 kilometers without any problems. And I don't know, like, and obviously I can do it too. And when I get back, then I always feel better. If not for the body, then for the mind. There really is a benefit to that exercise, and I can feel it. And the older I get, the better I feel when I exercise. So for me, like, and then but sometimes I kind of feel annoyed. It's not difficult at all. But sometimes I just don't feel motivated, and then the dog, he's, like, there, he's like, "Come on, please, let's go outside, please, let's go outside, please, let's go outside, please, 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 let's go, let's go, let's go," and makes noises, and he starts crying, and he starts running around, and that's enough for me. It's like, it takes that annoying feeling, and it's just like, "Okay, fine, let's do it." So that spark helps me to do the exercise. And finances, I don't know, it's kinda like I have automatic systems with finances. I just immediately, as soon as the money comes in, then I immediately funnel percentages into different areas. Like, for example, your first goal when it comes to your finances, it has to be 3 months. You have to have 3 months of emergency funds. So you take your burn rate, whatever your operational expenses are, and you figure out what are your operational expenses. You create a number. Like, let's say that my number is $1,000. Let's say that because I live in Georgia, I live in a country next to Russia and Azerbaijan, and I own this apartment, and the food is relatively cheap here. And let's say that I'm spending $1,000 a month. So it means that my operating expense is $1,000 a month. So it means that my operating expense is 1,000 a month, and my first goal has to be my emergency fund. So the emergency fund means that I need enough money, so I need $3,000. And until I have $3,000, then I shouldn't be thinking about other ways to spend that money. All right, so that's step one. Step two is like, okay, so now what are you going to do with that money? There's basically two things you can do with your money. Either you're going to put your money, if it's not an operating expense and it's not your emergency fund, and you still have money after your operating expenses and your emergency fund, then you are going to be doing one of two things. Either you're making purchases, like big one-time purchases. For example, maybe you need to renovate this wall, and maybe you need to buy a couch, and maybe maybe you want to go on a holiday. So these big, they're not operating expenses, they're kind of like big one-time purchases. So then the question is, well, how are you going to save up for those purchases? So then you need another percentage of your money after operating expenses. You have to decide what percentage of your money is going to go into big purchases down the line, and what percentage of your income is going to go to investments. So there you go. So that's the philosophy behind it. But then the thing is, like, well, saving up for long-term things is not necessarily the most interesting thing. So then the question is, well, like, how do you set up a system so that so it doesn't necessarily require a spark, but for some people, maybe it requires a spark. I don't know. You have to make a decision about that yourself. All right. So we've gotten to the end of the concept of the spark trigger. And so now it's time to figure out what are the things in your life that are important to you, and you need to do them. And they are kind of like little behaviors that are not difficult, but you kind of sometimes feel annoyed. And then how are you going to create a spark around that activity so that you're able to do the task consistently? All right. So um, what we're going to do is we're going to make a list, and you're going to, so that one row is going to be like all of the different activities where you think that there are some things that you need to do uh, daily or weekly or monthly or yearly, and then you need to put a little spark next to them. So under each item on the row, you're going to put like what is a potential spark that can help you to get that thing done. And then you're going to, again, you're going to put red and green. So the red light, or the red color, is for all of the different things which you should be doing but you feel annoyed to do, and then you need to start to experiment with those sparks. And then the green, it's the thing that you like, you're doing it and it's just part of your habits, you're already doing it every day, so it's not a big issue. So, idea of a spark trigger. And then now it's your opportunity to write down all of those things that are where you need to create sparks so that you will be able to take action and get the long-term benefits of these activities. All right, so I'm going to paste in the text that goes before this one. Saying I don't really know like the reality. What is like Fogg's motivation model in reality? Oh, my alarm's gonna go off. Where did I put my phone? Yeah, so like I said, my 7 o'clock alarm is gonna go off, and then the dog's gonna go crazy, and then it's time for me to go outside. All right, so Fogg's motivation model, it's not actually any more like difficult to understand than I just explained. And what you did, Gordon, stop it. So, I mean, I don't know, like, I'm gonna have to turn that alarm off, otherwise it's gonna affect the video and the dog. Because now we need to have like a summary, right? Here's my alarm. All right. So we did the spark trigger, we did the facilitation trigger, we did the spark trigger. And okay, let's do one more unit. You should see this dog. You won't even believe this. This guy is crazy. Gordon D, what do you want? What's up? What? What do you want? What's going on? What? Huh? You want to go outside? Huh? Is that what you want? All right, we're gonna go outside. I'm gonna go outside, go for a walk. We're gonna just do some thinking because my Google Gemini it's always gonna be there. So, Gordon D. Gordon D. Gordon D. He's my little birdie. Yeah, little birdie. He doesn't do kisses. Gordon. Give me a kiss. Give me a kiss. He's not a kisser, you see. He's not a